What's going on, everybody? Cali Death Podcast back once again, episode 89. I'm here on a Thursday, as always, with my resident homies, Casey and Joel. We'll see Joseph within the hour or so. He'll be on. Tonight is probably the most special night of the show for me so far. 89 episodes into this thing. We are joined by the great Paul Masvidal. How are you, Paul?
I'm doing well. It's an honor to be here with you guys.
It's an honor and a pleasure, like I said, pre-pod, to have you, meet you, and be able to sit and chat with you tonight, dude. This is a dream come true for me, no doubt. I mentioned that Cynic has been my favorite band for 20 years now, and everything that you have put out has had a deep connection with me in my life. It's gotten me through the lights, got me through the dark, and yes, thank you so much for giving us your time. Real quick, we're going to do some plugs. Let's do a battleforgecoffee.com plug for our homies in Deeds of Flesh. Go get your caffeine fix over there. Get some swag. Support the underground. CaliDeathPodcast.BigCartel.com. We only have 4 shirts left, guys. We have one small, a couple of XLs, and a double XL. If one of you guys wants to buy one during the show, maybe Joseph will do a live bagging for you later on. And let's plug that tour. Did we get the flyer ready for that tour? Boom, there it is. Shedding the Virus 2022. We're sponsoring this tour. Joseph's drumming with Ominous Ruin, our friends in Ominous Ruin, 7Gs, Alex Basie, all those guys. We love them. We just did a show with them on Tuesday to pump it up for them a little bit. But yeah, if you're in one of these areas, please go support the underground. And Paul, do you have any places that you want to plug online where people can buy merch or get information about what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like indie merch, is our main jam for US primarily, but they ship worldwide and they got a lot of good stuff. Mm-hmm. And then Traveling Merchant, which is a Europe-based shop. But if you just put in travelingmerchant.com and search Cynic, or, awesome. My Instagram has all the links and stuff too there in the bio. So
killer. Right on.
For sure.
So again, thank you so much, Paul. I know you're over in Miami right now. We'll be getting into why you're over there. I'm sure most people already know. But how we usually do it on the show is, and this is a very exciting conversation to ask this man, did I say conversation question? Sorry. We like you to take us back in time. We like you to take us to the point in childhood, the earliest memory that you can remember where music clicked with you. It wasn't just background music. Something caught your attention and made you want to pay attention to what you were listening to, and then it's off to the races from there.
Yeah. I mean, what immediately comes to mind before I even played an instrument was being in my mother's house and my mother's car and hearing music come on. And she had super eclectic taste. She was kind of into everything from folk to Cuban music to like Neil Diamond and like all the Sinatra stuff. It's like kind of all over the place. Mm-hmm. But I'll never forget, and this must have been in the early mid 70s, hearing a song. I want to say it was like, fucking, what song was it, man? I don't even know. Make It With You or some shit. It's David Gates. The band was called Bread.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Actually I think they were a California band. And I just remember hearing this song. I mean, I do have a distinct memory of it and thinking, wow, I want to be able to do that. Like the magic of song, fucking hit me. And it made an impression at a very young age. And
what was that age?
Probably like, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8, you know? I mean, there may have been earlier memories, but I'll just have that distinct memory of at that point feeling like it was like a real magical power, like to hear somebody so honestly sing and make me feel something so deeply. It felt like like this superpower. I was like, wow, just
Yeah.
dude, it just feels so magical, especially
Right.
being so young. I was just so raw and open, and I thought, fuck, I want to be able to do that. It was one of
Yeah.
those moments where it was just, and I think that was probably the beginning of the seed planting, where it was like, within a few years, I got a guitar, 10,
Right.
I was
Right.
playing. And so it's definitely was the beginning.
Tell
And
us the story about getting that guitar.
well, I actually got a bass first. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, I'm remembering now. My parents were divorced at a young age, so I'd gone, I think, to my dad, who had maybe a little more bread at the moment, and I was like, "Hey, I want to play an instrument, And I think he just didn't listen too clearly and just brought a bass or something,
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh wait, no, not one of these," and
Yeah.
it's swapped it pretty quickly. And I think the first guitar was like a West Tone or something, like a cheap Strat or something, I
Right.
don't even know if that's the brand name anymore, but it was, it was one of those things where it took a little while. I don't think I remember it wasn't until I was about 13, 14 that I was like, okay, I fucking can do this, and like I actually started to practice seriously. And I think I was at summer camp and I brought my guitar, and I remember having that moment where I suddenly could like my right hand got its shit together and I could pick fast and like play passages and shit. And I was like, okay, I can do this,
Yeah. Yeah.
Suddenly you get some facility on the instrument and it gives you confidence. And I had those moments of like where I felt at a young age I had a natural inclination to the instrument. It just felt like the right thing to be doing. And
Hmm.
like it just went very natural for me. And then I don't know that either of my folks really thought much of it. They just realized that I was one of those kids that rather than doing a lot of socializing in those years, especially by my teens, I was just totally interested in practicing. I just wanted to get better and play. So I was just woodshedding and just jamming, and then I got introduced to Sean, in elementary school around that same period.
Oh wow.
Elementary school, huh?
Jeez.
Yeah, I think we were 13.
Wow.
Yeah, so right around when I started to get good, or at least kind of feel like I could play riffs in like a solo, and like I figured out solos of my brother was into classic rock. I grew up hearing like Zeppelin and Floyd, and so I was like picking out that shit and like learning stuff.
What
And
was actually, to take it back just a little bit, what was the first song that you played from front to back where you're like, I learned it and I finished it? Like,
it might have been an Aussie song.
nice.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like what year was Over the Mountain? I can't even remember. Like, those are
82 or so. Or that was off Diary of a Madman, I
Never
think.
Madman. Was that
Yeah,
82?
I think so. Or
Probably like
81,
Over
82.
the Mountain, because I remember I was obsessed
Yeah.
with Randy Rhoads,
Fuck yeah.
and that guitar solo was just like fucking A. I want to play like that,
Yeah.
And I like could play it. I was like, fuck yeah,
So,
And then and I got into like heavier and heavier shit because I was just pushing the envelope. I had to get heavier than my brother,
Right.
But I mean, by 14, 15, we're getting Metallica demos and shit. You know what I mean? It's Slayer. And I was calling fucking Tom Araya, whose phone number I got on the underground, and was like, hey, dude, I can play your songs. And he was like, play me something. And I put the phone up to my PV amp and fucking played him Cryonics and shit. He was like, that's fucking
Wow.
cool, dude. Yeah, I remember. He was actually cool. Kerry King was really a dick. He was so and I mean, I'm going to diss him now, but he was just not nice to a little fanboy,
Right.
And I never talked to Jeff, and Dave was just kind of like dry, but Lombardo, who I spoke to for a minute, but Tom was like your dad. He was just so chill and so sweet, you know. And I think about, because I called him probably a couple times, but he was just so warm and like open and receptive to me being this young guitar player who was just a fan who wanted to share what I learned. But I had the real benefit, man, which I think is different from a lot of people that have grown up maybe in the past 10, 20 years playing guitar, is that my world was not in front of a computer. It was how I learned really was getting in front of other musicians. So here I'm meeting Sean, 12, 13. The day we met, I went to his house and we jammed in his bedroom, you know? So we immediately like, bam, I was like, okay, we're doing this, you know, we were like writing songs. And so we forged an alliance at a very young age and had immediate interaction with a fellow musician, you know, and Sean was a beast of a fucking drummer.
Yeah, I mean, you think about other people who have gone through the trials and tribulations of finding a musician, a drummer as a guitar player, vice versa, and how many times they miss before they finally hit, and here you are, the first guy you go to jam with is fucking Sean Reinert.
I mean, and he was like stupid then. Do you know? I don't remember Sean ever sucking. You know what I mean? Like,
so cool. Natural.
I've told this story before, but he was the kid that went to his first drum lesson. He had played piano before. His mom, you know, he was like, I want to play drums. I want to play drums. His mom takes him, okay, well, you have to take lessons. You have to be good if you're going to do this. And he apparently the first lesson, man, the teacher plays him like a Police song because, you know, Stuart Copeland was like kind of advanced for pop stuff. And Sean said to him, I know what he's doing. I understand what he's doing. This is before he ever sat behind a drum set. Jeez. And he literally sat behind the kid and started to play the groove. And the teacher was like, I don't know if I can teach you. And the teacher was like, maybe I can show you technique and stuff. So he started to teach him technique stuff, but Sean had it in his karma. He came in fully programmed with sick talent that like he did work hard to become the drummer he became, but he came out of the bat fucking already solid. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
Piano background helped.
I mean, it's not surprising that man is just was always a monster.
Yeah, and it was a dream for me. I was so spoiled because first off, I was lucky enough that he was my first musician friend, right? So, wow, that's the first dude I get to jam with is Sean Reinert, you know?
Yeah.
And then that any idea I ever had, any drum thing, anything, he could do it. Like there was nothing beyond his scope. So I could just hum weird riffs or parts or be like, do this thing or do doubles there and fucking switch into this and he just like busted out. Like it was fun for him. You know what I mean? Like so musically proficient that playing was just a joy. It was just all a dance of expression. Sean was just a master, you know?
So how long, you probably started out with covers, obviously. How long into playing with him did you guys start playing with writing originals?
Pretty soon, man. Like I just saw a buddy actually, was it last night? I think it was last night. Yeah. A buddy of mine, another childhood friend, whose name was Russell Mofsky, who was another guitar player. He was part of that. Like he came in the room with Sean and me early on. He went to a different school, but he kind of just like, we knew him through Sean's sister. And I remember us playing like Dio, Rainbow in the Dark, and like all these like, you know, bits and pieces of covers of these bands, Metallica, early Metallica stuff. But Slayer, of course. And then I think probably like kind of the writing original music went hand in hand. Our first band was called Kobold, which is like a German goblin or something, you know, it's a word for, I used to pick names out because my mom had a big ass Webster's dictionary, this fat, in the living room. Yep. And I would just flip through it, just looking for weird words and shit. And it was like kobold. And it's like, I think they're represented as the goblins on like, you know, churches and shit, right? Those are
like, almost like gargoyles or
gargoyles type things.
Nice.
Okay.
We were like, that's a cool name, you know? Right. And And then what other did we have? Oh yeah, and then we had Krypha. Maybe Krypha was first, and then Kobold. Actually, it's funny. Now I'm going even further back. This is trippy, dude. You're bringing me way back. We had a band called Seaweed.
Oh, and what we were just talking about pre-pod, dude.
Oh, that's right. Where you're just swimming. You're just swimming in the seaweed or trying to avoid the seaweed.
It was Seaweed was the first band.
Trip. I actually like that one out of all of them.
I know.
I know, me too.
I'm a beach town kid too.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
No, it was with our friend. We had another homie, this guy Reed, and we had songs like called, Abyssal Plains, like the deepest part of the ocean. Like we had themes around like the ocean and seaweed.
Awesome.
And, yeah, I think that our one song, which might even be on fucking YouTube, God forbid, it's called Seaweed Creature. And yeah, I don't know. I'll have to find it somewhere, man.
So there's some basement tapes of these early projects then too.
Yeah. I mean, I was with my friend Gus, who's another childhood friend tonight. And he was asking me, we were talking about childhood memories because he knew Sean as well. And he's like, what are your fond memories? He just asked me that when we were walking back, and like from the beach to this restaurant. And then we got, the Uber to get here, which was the whole delay. But anyway, so I remembered Sean and I with boom boxes making tapes of like what would be the equivalent of a podcast today. We did our own like radio shows.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and we'd act like a DJ. We'd be like, so what kind of music are you? You know what I mean? We're talking like,
wow.
Jesus, you're ahead of the time on that too.
Man,
I know, man.
It's crazy to think about that. Cool. He was saying when you get home, when you get back to Cali, you got to fucking digitize that shit. I wonder if they'll even play, but I got all those tapes,
That's awesome.
This is like pre-pubescent. I mean, our voices are super high. We're fucking like giggling and shit.
Oh, I'd love to hear that, dude.
Dude, no, there was a tape we made, a couple, where we went and got Mexican food and fucking farted all night. It was like a fart tape.
Dude, I had a fart tape too.
I had a fart ringtone of my own farts too for a while.
That's amazing. How on one of those?
Yeah. Technology, man.
Yeah, dude.
I know. I gotta mix up. But dude, so yeah, you know what I mean? So many early childhood memories like that. But we were writing songs early on, and I think it went hand in hand because we were really like artist musicians. We had the interest in being better and really being skilled, but we also wanted to come up with new ideas and make our own music. It was like part of the joy was to create something. And
exactly,
you know what I mean? It's like
creating with other people too. That's like
so motivating.
One sculpture that everybody sculpts in, and then it becomes this whole thing that is the collective effort. And
totally, man. Yeah, it's like exactly 100% that. It's like it's just you kind of morph into one thing, and that's so many years of my life with Sean. We were just one thing that was just amorphous and kind of coming in and out of each other's consciousness. Like this is, one of those things where I feel like we didn't really get to know each other as people as much as we did just as these weird creative kids that just made art the day we met. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't even about like, oh, we got stuff in common. The only thing we had in common, I mean, ended up having a lot in common, but it was really like this one kid in school, Ron Rivchin, who my friend Gus knew was one of his old best friends, in the cafeteria said, Paul's the only drummer and Paul's the only guitar player, and Sean, you're the only drummer. You guys need to meet. And, Sean got the pepper shaker in the cafeteria and went, nice to meet you. And, the joke with Sean was that he was blowing pepper in my face our entire life, it was our dynamic. He was like the little brother who was just fucking, you know what I mean? But that tension makes great music, man. Like
totally.
That was the fucking thing that just we were scrubbing against,
Right. And your conversations with each other were through the music as well too. Like it's a language so you say like you didn't really get to know each other as people, but actually you were showing each other who you were.
Deeper. It's deeper than the personality, man.
Mm-hmm.
I always feel like if someone understands my music, like you know me better than anybody, because that's as real and transparent and deep as it gets in terms of a place of expression. Like this is all just like, who is this? I don't know who the fuck is talking. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. It's like,
Yeah.
so it's the music feels so pure, and that's so it's yeah. So I'm it's grateful to be chatting with you guys because it's like, oh yeah, you know, you feel seen.
Yeah, dude, definitely. And these are the types of things that we love to dig into on the show. So I want you to keep going though. So like you had the first couple of projects, the basement tapes. What age did you guys really start getting serious with it? Because I'm sure you guys were part of the tape trading situation back then, and you're coming across all the underground stuff. Like, actually, too, side note, what was the first tape in the tape trading shit where it just blew your mind?
I mean, there were so many cool fucking extreme bands, man. The scene was so electric and experimental then, as it is now. But it was just definitely there was shit that was so fucking. Oh, Gus, hold on, Gus, no. Oh shit, hold on.
It's all good. It's all good. I think the dog got let out. I think.
Oops. Oh, I saw a tail there earlier. Yeah, I was like gonna ask him, is that a pet or?
It was like perfect timing with the dog and they were like he was like ducking behind with like the tail behind him. I was like,
dude, this is so sick, guys.
I know.
Already.
Okay, sorry about that.
Oh, you're all good.
Yeah, there was. So I'm thinking there were so many bands. Like a band that comes to mind that was really kind of fun and experimental. That's my buddy.
What up, Gus?
Yeah.
What up, Gus?
There was a band called Wehrmacht. You know, like remember Slayer had that shirt Slatanic Wehrmacht?
Oh yeah. It's like the Germans.
Yeah. Some kind of. It's actually like probably a Nazi reference, which isn't very cool. But the band was this weird kind of Zappa grindcore.
Whoa.
Like funny, but like sick musicians and really smart lyrics and like just really clever, weird outsider kind of punk Zappa fucking grindcore. Like that's the best way to explain it.
Sounds like I really want to listen to that band. I hope they're not Nazis.
I don't think they were Nazis. They were more just like weird and had like it was just a weird word that they used or something. Like I don't remember a Nazi thing. And
I always hope like with the Slayer thing, I always hope that it was kind of like a
shock
like
thing.
You're referencing like dark times and it's scary. It's kind of like a horror film with a lot of like death metal bands, but they decided to use that imagery because you just see like the gnarly, like the helmet, like skeleton.
Slayer got way into that shit. Right?
I know. Yeah, Jeff Hanneman supposedly like had like a huge collection of like the World War II, like, but it's like
that's weird, dude.
Yeah,
I mean, sort of Lemmy did too. Lemmy, but much people like, it's like they were like collecting it as like a weird, like it's like a horror thing. I'm hoping it's a horror thing, like a really like scary part of humanity to collect, but to have it in your house is kind of like it's bad. It's just bad feng shui.
Bad feng shui.
No, but there was this, there was always like in the way that there was acceptable homophobia in the metal scene, there was acceptable like forms of racism too, and there was a lot of Nazi bullshit going on in the punk scene too, man. The punk was even worse, right?
Right.
So it's just, and it was all about people trying to be edgy and fucking rebellious, but it's like, to me, that's like the lowest vibrational form of stupidest shit you could possibly. It's like, it's right there with like torturing animals or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like if you've taken enough psychedelics, like seeing something like that sounds like a really dissonant chord, like it really has like a really weird, like you said, vibrational. So it just has like you lose on a what's that, Family Feud? It's like it's like that's like you hear that almost like when you see like that kind of negative stuff like on psychedelics. Yeah.
But I don't remember their lyrics being anything like that. I just remember their music being extremely crazy. And I mean, there were so many. It's like now I'm like thinking because there were so many bands that were just one-offs, that just made one demo or a couple demos and just were gone. And I always think about like what happened to that band, or what, because you know what I mean. It's like there was such an abundant scene, and then weirdly, there's bands that like appeared back then, like Mantis, that became Death.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was tape trading. That's how I met Chuck. You know, it was literally just like tape trading scene. We swapped some shit. I got, you know, Infernal Death demo at some point after hearing the Mantis stuff, and he started to do Death. And I was like, this is so sick. I need to know who this is. And some friend of mine was like, oh, you should, you know, here's his phone number. He's up in Orlando, which is like 4 hours north of Miami, where we were living. And I was like, I got his phone number. I started to call him and became his friend, you know?
Dude, that just shows like, you know, the difference of today versus then, because you've already mentioned twice like how you got a hold of people was on the phone.
Yeah.
You know? And it was a phone connected to the wall that you had the cord, and you were just tethered to it.
Yeah, it's not a DM, and it's not an email.
Mm-mm.
It's a phone call, and you hear a living, breathing person. Because if it wasn't a phone call, it was snail mail. And snail mail was amazing, and we all got to know each other in incredible ways because you'd write these long letters to people sometimes, just
right.
And we'd send our lists of our demo compilations and breakdowns. I mean, it would just be a little bit of everything, man. And so it was really kind of like, and you can get to know people. Like I remember really, you know, you felt like you got to know people just by their handwriting. It was weird because you never heard them speak. But once you got a hold of people on the phone, like Chuck, immediately, it was like there was a friendship forged, because now you're in that delicate space of speech, and it's more intimate.
Totally.
Yeah.
So to take it back to Sean and you, so you guys are what age? I forget when you guys started really writing the serious stuff.
So
and
probably like, yeah, I mean, we were playing, you know, we played people's backyard parties at like 14 already. By 14, 15, we were playing parties and clubs and
what would be the, like, describe the style you guys were playing at that time?
It was like kind of like, I guess, just like rock, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like we were like interested in, I mean, we weren't probably good enough to play the extreme stuff. If we did, it was in a more punk way. Like we could do it, but I think we were just doing more like rock inspired songs, just like, I'm trying to think, but like just more straight ahead, like kind of just like, what are those bands, like almost like, you know, even early 80s kind of sounding stuff, you know, like I mean,
like jam rock type? No, not jam rock, but
not
like
jam, more just like, you know, it's like thinking of like bands. I mean, it's. I mean, there was even a dare I say this? There was like a, you know, maybe the first Motley Crue record. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
like that was like a thing, you know.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like,
Jam was on that.
yeah, what else was there? I mean, obviously a lot of the classic rock stuff, but I just a lot of the 80s kind of. So we were just writing these really straight ahead tunes, and then we had the Seaweed thing also. So I'm thinking like Seaweed was almost more of this like branch that was more of like the Voivod side of ourselves, which was like this being weird and original and not playing by the rules. So I think actually what's interesting now is I'm realizing Krypha, which came from you're taking apocrypha and just take, you know, the end of that word, apocryphal or whatever, and pulling out that word out of it. And I think that was the first band, really. Kobold, Krypha, and then Seaweed happened. And Seaweed was like Voivod and fucking being weird and edgy and trying to kind of develop a sound that was unique and didn't sound like anybody else. And
was it instrumental, or were you doing vocals at the time?
He did vocals, my friend Reed. And he just did this kind of low, kind of semi growl, but not really. It was almost more spoken, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And really just nerdy about the lyrics and stuff. And then I think really it was post Seaweed. There was the birth of Cynic, you know. Cynic was probably, because that was already, now we're talking mid 80s, and Cynic's first demo was 87. So 87 or 88. I can't remember now.
So you said nerdy about the lyrics. What what were you, some things you were writing about at the time as a young
I
man?
mean, like the post Seaweed, early Cynic, really, I was very political, you know? It was just very reactive kind of lyrics where I was very much at war with society and the ways of the world.
Kind of taking a punk
Yeah, very punk.
aesthetic.
Yeah, and we were into punk. I mean, we're actually, that's another thing I should mention. Like at the time, there was like, you know, the punk scene was merging with the metal scene too. And there was a lot of weird bills that happened. Like I remember as a kid going to see Destruction and Cro-Mags, you know,
Oh wow.
and like there was tours like that. And those weren't cool vibes because the skinheads didn't like the metalheads. You know what I mean? So a lot of tension at the concerts and stuff. But,
I wonder what that, if promoters knew that, I wonder what they were trying to do with that. Were they trying to bring people together, or are they trying to cause a little hostility?
I think they didn't even know, man. It was just
Yeah.
in the same way that our Cynic's first real tour was opening for Cannibal Corpse, you know?
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that. Yeah.
Like that was obviously not the right bill. We love those guys and fucking, but man, sonically and vibe, it was just like totally different sounds, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Going off on that real quick, I mean, that was one of the questions I like had locked and loaded. My brother was at the Berkeley Square show, the one that's like it's all, you know.
Dude,
there's a couple
that
shows.
was one of the best shows of the tour, man.
Totally.
Yeah.
There was like a couple. You guys played a couple nights or something there. Is that correct? Or that's what he said?
Or did we play 2 nights there, or maybe another spot? Like
Maybe another spot. He was saying that like he was on acid watching you guys,
how cool.
but he like loved you guys. He was like all about like you and Sean, and followed you guys from, you know, death and stuff like that. But said that pretty much right after there was an earthquake, right after the
that, because I remember. It's funny now. I'm remembering. I can't remember if it was that tour when I was in a hotel room in San Francisco and fucking an earthquake happened, and I ran out with my towel. Because it was a good one, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he was like freaked out.
Then, man.
We're right by that one fault line. What is it called?
Oh, the Sierra
San Andreas.
San Andreas. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
That show, I'll tell you, man, I was so psyched. I don't know. I have to get a hold of the guy who shot it because he had 3 cameras, and he fucking recently like edited it properly, and like the best moment of that tour ever, where I'm just like, wow, like the highlight of that tour, which didn't have many. Most of the shows were pretty rough for us. Is fucking well documented with a killer 3 camera shoot, and like it sounds decent. It actually like it's for considering it's all like whatever high camera or something. It's like the quality, it's balanced, you know. So I'm so psyched about that. I was like, we got to do something with that and get it out in a proper way, or I don't know.
It's a legendary show for all the older generation of the Bay. You know, I grew up in the Bay. You'd heard of right outside of San Francisco, and all the older dudes that when I was a young kid, they're like, "Oh, you like Cynic, dude? You didn't see him back at Berkeley Square, dude." You know?
Cool.
Yep. It was a legendary show.
I actually watched the whole thing from beginning to end, like in the past couple months, because someone was like, "You got to see this 3 camera thing, man," and I was like, I literally did not like have a moment where I was like, oh fuck, we fucked up, or it was like a pretty much like solid performance from beginning to end where we fucking nailed it, and we walked off that stage that night going, that was a fucking killer show.
It's
so rare that happens, you know, where you just like you just did it right.
For sure. The sound was good. Everything. Like there's always that
audience was fucking awesome, and that's really most of it because it's live is reciprocal, man. And if the audience is bouncing back, isn't giving you love back, you will not
catch that energy.
You'll literally
be catching a different one.
Mistakes and fucked up because the vibe was off, you know.
So you were talking about like the touring with Cannibal, how it was rough. So like, were you talking about First of all, did Alex Webster bring you guys? I feel like a story that Alex Webster loved you guys and then brought you guys on.
Well, so we had toured. We had done a lot of van tours before that tour, just like demo days. And one tour, we got in my van and we drove all the way from Miami to Buffalo, New York. And this was before Cannibal had a record deal. And we played a gig with Cannibal and Malevolent Creation. Malevolent Creation were also in my van because they had just moved to Florida. And so we and they're like, yeah, we got these bros up in Buffalo. We should go play a gig with them. So we drove all the way. And I remember when we got there, my transmission went out.
Fuck.
The car was just like wrecked. And
Yeah.
but we played some gigs with Cannibal in Buffalo that were pretty awesome. And obviously, like, the scene was so small then, man, that like the only other band that we really felt like a real kinship to in terms of sound was Atheist.
I knew you were going to say that, dude.
Yep, me too.
I mean, they were just like as weird, if not weirder than us. And I was so like moved by like a band that was really doing its own thing. And Kelly took us under his wing and brought us into the world. I mean, he championed Cynic and sang our praises to everybody and called all the people in the business that he knew and said, I've got this fucking band called Cynic. These kids are fucking sick and you need to hear them. And he was like our manager back then, like really believed in us and really helped us, which, by the way, at one point, I don't know if you know this, but Debbie Abono was Cynic's manager for a minute. She was Possess manager.
Okay.
Old Bay Area kind of mom lady, like grandma, basically, who was like a legend in the Bay Area. And
that's what's up.
Like Metallica was tight with her. She was just like the mom of the Bay Area thrash scene back in the day. And I was a huge fan of all that music. And I remember meeting her because she toured with, I think, a bunch of her bands, but it may have been like Violence or Forbidden or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I like gave her a demo and was like, you know, you got to hear my band. And we stayed in touch, and she ended up like managing us for a minute, which was really cool because I loved her.
Totally.
But yeah, so we went up there, and I think it was Malevolent that was friends with Alex, and then Alex kind of got to know us because Alex knew us before even Malone was in the band. And then it wasn't until we actually like toured for, you know, once Focus came out and they had an album or two out, that we really got to know each other and really grew to like each other, you know. And I think Alex took bass lessons from Malone on that tour, you know. So we, like, those guys became our brothers. And Rob Barrett, who wasn't even in Cannibal at the time, was in another band. He had his own group called Solstice, but he was another Buffalo guy. He lived in Cynic's warehouse. So he was like, we were all like intertwined with these like guys from the Northeast that early.
Yeah. Solstice kicks ass, dude.
Solstice definitely kicks ass. I do want to rewind a little bit because we jumped over a bunch of stuff. I want to know about like when you decided to start this new project, Cynic, you know, like what influenced you to go in that direction, get more extreme, more technical compared to the things that you've been mentioning in your timeline so far? Like what clicked with that? Where did you guys decide to take that? We're going to get off on this exit and see how far it takes us.
Well, like, you know, our demos are almost like, you know, I really never wanted those demos out in the world. I mean, I felt like Focus was really the beginning of a realized vision. Like, I was like, this is the band now. Like, now we know who we are and what we sound like. Like, those early demos, they're like sketches, you know?
Right.
And I felt like it was too soon to share. Like, but, you know, of course, now you can't. It's like it's all out there, and we ended up putting it out through Century Media years ago.
You also got to think of it though, like about guys like me, because Focus was my first introduction to the band, and it changed me at that point. But I'm also like, I'm a collector, and once whether it be movies, books, you know, I follow directors, and once I fall in love with a director, I have to see everything they've done, even, you know, back to sometimes being exposed to like early David Lynch stuff where he was doing stuff in like student films and stuff like that. So, but I like to see the whole process. So I personally can really appreciate those demos because it does show me what it takes what the process is to get to a focus,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. Well,
So
now,
I know as an artist, though, of course, you have it's a different perspective, and of
yeah,
course, yeah, I would probably actually I have demos that I don't ever want to get on the
right.
internet either.
It's like
So it's
reverse
like
engineering. You
it
want to
is.
reverse engineer a little bit, like see
Yeah,
where the
yeah.
things get, like
No,
get
it's
into the band first,
terrifying.
then reverse. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it feels like, fuck, we sucked, you know. But now you're reminding me, man. So I got kicked out of junior high in Miami.
For what?
Well, you won't believe it. So I was at a private school. This is where I met Sean, called
Okay.
Gulliver Academy, and I had like, was fucking with my hair, bleaching it. They were saying you couldn't grow your hair past your collar, like a pretty strict school. And I was always just like and I had long hair as a kid, but once I went to this school, I had to cut it. And my mom was always on my team, but she just like put me in this school because it was like where certain kids, parents wanted their kids going to this certain good school. But the principal, this lady named Miss Catullus, was like a fucking wicked witch, man. She was just
Cthulhu. It's almost Cthulhu.
I know.
She was like a villain for character from a fucking comic book or something, like really classic, archetypal, scary.
Cruella de Vil.
I mean, just like really,
Yeah.
very dominant and very kind of in her power and controlling and just aggressive and mean and just no kindness in her heart. And fucking, I'll never forget her bringing me into her, and it wasn't a religious school at all. It was actually primarily Jewish kids, and then a combination of like a little bit of everything. But I'd say a lot of Jewish kids. And I remember her pulling me into her office, seeing me like outside one day and saying, "Come to my office." And I went to her office, and she says, "Your hair is too long. You have to cut it again." And I remember her having a plaque of Jesus, like at 33 or something, that famous picture of him with the fucking like little part and his hair down here.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at her and I said, "If he was at your school, would you have him cut his hair?" And she literally was like, "I'm calling your parents. You don't belong at this school." And that like I offended her. And it wasn't even a religious school, but I was such a smart ass. But I remember my mother came into the school, and I remember her saying to her, "Do you ask them to cut their nails? Because his nails are long too." And so my mom defended me, you know?
There you go.
Yeah.
But she says, "You're not welcome at the school anymore."
Jesus.
And so I had authority problems as a kid. I didn't like people telling me what to do, especially people who were abusive of their authority. I was fine if you were a respectful person, but if you were like somebody who's just talking down because you're young, I was like,
Yeah.
like fucking, I'm not, I was just a smart ass punk.
Yeah.
And I didn't like the abuse of power,
Well, yeah, it's totally, and you're smart enough at that age to see that that's what's happening too.
Yeah, it felt really uncool and fucking shitty. And so, but ended up my parents were just like, "Okay, you can't go back to the school, so we're going to send you to a boarding school."
Ooh.
And I went to school in upstate New York, a school called Darrow School. And I don't know if it's still there. It was right on the border of Pittsfield, Massachusetts. And it was kind of a school for like buck up kids who were like.
So real quick, before you move forward. So Sean was still at that school and then you got kicked out of that school.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then so Sean and I stayed like this while I went to boarding school writing letters. And this was the beginning of Cynic, actually, was kind of dreaming of this band that we were going to make when we could get together again. And while I was in boarding school, I met Mark Van Erp, who was our first bass player.
Were you able to bring a guitar with you to boarding school?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Okay. I was playing, man. And Sean and Mark was like another musician who I met in music class in school who was like busting out Maiden and shit. And I hadn't seen bass players play like that. Sean and I had been through other bass players earlier that just, you know, the kind of guys who were like, could you play your kick drum? I want to tune my bass. We're like, what are you? Like, we're so young, you know what I mean? And, but like, but Mark Van Erp was like, he could play. This guy was like fucking playing Steve Harris shit, you know? And like,
Yeah.
and that was sick back then. I mean, really, it was like, and just, he really had fingers and facility. So Mark, I said, I got a bass player, man. And I was telling Sean this, you know, writing him, and eventually sometimes we talk on the phone. And so we were basically dreaming of this band. And funny enough, man, I got kicked out of that boarding school.
Oh, you know, I'm going to ask you.
I know.
And I
How?
got kicked out because, I mean, this is the real story.
All right, let's hear it.
I was starting to realize that I was gay in those years. I actually remember the day, this has nothing to do with being gay, but I'll never forget the day my homie told me Cliff Burton died. And I fucking was so sad. And you know what I mean?
Right.
I was in school. I'll never forget that, man. But I also realized that I just didn't want to bang gals. And just like not down with that, you know? And I was like, fuck, what does this mean? You know, and you're starting to kind of come, and I knew probably much younger then, but to come out to yourself is the first step of this process, to where you actually accept that this might be true, that you're gay, you know? And I was like, oh, fuck. And basically, you know, I had girlfriends, I'm not a gold star gay. I've actually slept with women before. I actually got a first girlfriend pregnant. She had an abortion. I'd have like a fucking 35-year-old kid right now if I didn't.
Whoa.
It was an abortion. Yeah, my mom was like, you are not having this kid. I mean, my whole life would have been different, right?
Right.
So, yeah. Anyway, so I was kind of coming to terms with that. And there was a girl at boarding school who basically wanted to hook up with me. And she was a real princess. She's used to getting what she wanted. Beautiful girl. I loved her to death. I did not want to bang her. And she got mad at me. And it all escalated because I was rejecting her more and more, just not giving her what she wanted. And she was the kind of chick that could get whatever she wanted. She got all the attention. All the boys loved her and fucking, you know what I mean? And so I said no, and basically she came at me like in math class or something and like grabbed my hair. By this point I could grow your hair, so I had long hair. And she was like, you asshole, you know, talking high school,
Jesus.
You know, like freshman year. No, this was sophomore year. And she fucking, and I literally got up and grabbed her and like pushed her and kind of like pushed her away. And she fell down, like made this dramatic fall and like a scene, you know what I mean?
Right.
And then the jock, like boyfriend of hers was like, you fucking threw, her name was Lorna. And she's like, you threw fucking Lorna, you think you're tough, you know? And I was like, she fucking came at me, man, you know? And we were Anyways, that turned into a whole division at the school where the punks went up against the preps, and fucking there was going to be a huge rumble. And I was, and my buddy Nick was like, my homie was like, we're going to fucking take them down. This is going to go down. Like, I got you, brother. And it was like, we were all going to fight. And it was like the punks and the metalheads against the fucking yuppie preppy guys, you know?
Yeah.
It's kind of like an old 80s movie or something.
Totally, dude.
For sure. I was just thinking that.
Dude. This shit went down.
It's so funny.
Right.
And when they figured out that I was at the middle of it, this little fucking rebellious metalhead kid, they fucking took me to the office one day and said, we're sending you home.
Wow.
And I fucking cried, man. I was like, I don't want to, you know, like I was just a kid.
Totally.
Yeah.
And my mom was so pissed. But then I was psyched because, you know, I went to public school and I remember like, but by the way, I should insert that my first day at boarding school, my roommate gave me a hit of acid, and I fucking tripped my
First
first day
day.
of school. So I was like, I fucking love boarding school.
Did you go out and have fun, or did you stay in the
I
room?
stayed in my room and I looked at. I'll never forget. There was like bunk beds because we shared. There's like 4 of us in one room, and I'll never forget fucking the springs tripping, like the springs of the bunk bed, and just like fucking just dissolving into the bunk and shit, and just I basically lay down in a bed and just tripped balls. You know?
Yeah.
But I was just so exciting and fucking a whole new universe opened.
Well, dude, yeah, you're in this new environment, and then you were just exposed to this environment that you didn't even know existed.
Yeah,
New environments.
yeah.
Yeah.
Suddenly you're meeting it in a whole new way. So that was the beginning of psychedelics for me, because when I went back to Miami, I was selling acid, in high school. By my junior, senior year, I was selling a lot of it. I sold musical note blotter and actually made some decent money and would keep it in the fridge at my mom's house, and stashed it, And, but yeah, but that was kind of a weird blessing and maybe my own attempt at sabotage to get back to Sean. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I kept thinking about Sean and wanting to make music with him, and our kinship, our brotherhood was so deep that we were like, we got to get back. We got to get back.
Yeah, I'm tired of writing these letters. We need to go see these dreams through.
Yeah, and Mark I think he eventually got kicked out of the boarding school as well because he moved to Miami. And he brought a buddy of his down, this guy named Jack Kelly, and that ended up being Cynic's first demo. And that was like, that was really, so Mark came down. Mark was originally from Poughkeepsie, New York. And then Jack, his homie, came with him, and he's like, yeah, because I didn't want to sing. I was like, I just want to play guitar. And he was like, yeah, my buddy Jack can sing. And I don't think Jack had ever sang in his life, but he just fucking made it happen in a punk kind of way. And I was interested in writing lyrics. I was always a writer. So that was really the beginning, man. And it was like, we were still in high school. I guess, this was like 87.
Right. And you're writing that rebellious political stuff you were talking about at that time.
Yeah, I think even Weak Reasoning was like against animal cruelty. I was like into vegetarianism already back then,
Totally.
And so yeah, there was that stuff, and then a lot of like society stuff, and then like lyrics about psychology. I was just interested in nerdy things.
Were you a reader from?
Oh, deep reader, man. Yeah, like I lived in bookstores, and my favorite authors back then were people like Philip Dick, obviously like sci-fi stuff, and Ray Bradbury. And I was just really into sci-fi and fucking alien shit.
I'm still an Asimov fan until I die, dude. The Foundation series is, one of my all-time favorite trilogy, at least, and even the expansion books are still good. You know what's funny about that? Real quick, to side note that, like, after Asimov passed, there's a few authors that tried to like fill in the gaps of that timeline, and it just never hit with them trying. I'm just like hearing them talk, these same characters from Asimov's books talk in a different way. Like Harry Seldon would never say
Right. Like he didn't have the voice. He didn't have the voice for the characters.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's a trip, man, how like that stuff, it's that stuff for me, I realized was also planting seeds for what would merge in Cynic sound too. It was like, that early childhood stuff took a while to kind of coalesce subconsciously and come out as an art, as a sound. Because we were still more in this rebellious fuck you phase of those early years, like I remember a song called Extremes. I think that was on the first demo, and it was about like hypochondriacs and stuff, and people who would make themselves. I mean, it's funny though, lyrics are so interesting in that, and this is something I've come to realize. everything is our mirror, right? Everything is a reflection of ourselves. We're just all reflecting each aspects of ourselves to each other. Like this is things you start to realize when you do high dose psychedelics. You start to see, holy shit, I'm not separate. Like everything's connected. And so I sit there and I think, oh, this angst and this rebellion against the ways of the world, but it's really like at war with my own shadow, at war with my own unloved parts of myself, my low self-esteem, my all these things I was struggling with in those teen years, which were so rough. You know, in time, like, who are you and what am I? I mean, I'm still dealing with that, but like,
yeah, I think we'll deal with that forever.
Yeah, it changes. It changes,
never done, man.
Yeah. We're always constantly changing as humans, so it's like we have to find new identities as we get older.
Yeah, it's an evolving organism and stuff, but yeah. So, but that's it. So Mark came down and he played on those first couple Cynic demos, first two, and then I think we just split with those guys, and we got Tony. And then I think you know what it was, man, is that we were all pushing each other. We were interested. I mean, Maiden back then was like the proggiest of the metal bands, right? In terms of like really fucking cool, weird, notey riffs and stuff, and conceptual ideas and fucking trippy lyrics. And so it was like just trying to go deeper and further beyond a Maiden, like, and then being exposed to more progressive music. And you know, I think for us, I mean, once like we got hip to like fusion and really extreme forms of jazz, you know, that was when it was like our brains blew open and we're like, holy shit, fucking there's infinite possibilities and chords and this is so crazy, you know, how much can be done. And that's when it reached a whole other level where I felt like the voice just kind of blossomed. And I always say this, we had, you know, if Cynic had made a record the year we got signed, which was like, I think we signed in 91, 92, but then a hurricane came to Miami and fucking decimated the city. And it decimated our rehearsal space, which was out in the fucking boonies because it was cheap. And we were ready to, like, almost had all the material ready to go bust out a record, which would have been pretty extreme, like the 91 demo. I don't know if you guys are hip to it, but it's like our peak brutal phase. And I actually had the most guttural voice and I sounded almost like Chuck Becerra. And it was like it finally kind of came into this full-blown extreme thing. And then this hurricane came, decimated Miami, and we couldn't jam. Like everything was fucked for like a year. So we all just like were in our bedrooms fucking woodshedding, and we got everything just expanded. Like I was just exposed to new information and books and writing and playing and
more acid.
And oh my God, tons of more acid. I mean, we actually had a lot of incredible, memorable journeys together as a band, tripping and playing, where we would work on song ideas. Like I always say, like I just actually was WhatsApping with a homie earlier today saying he sent me a review of Ascension Codes, and I was like, that guy's never done psychedelics. And I was like, anybody who's done psychedelics will understand our music better.
Oh, yeah.
And definitely.
It just gives you insights. And I can't tell you how many times over the years people had finally got a record or understood what we were doing because of psychedelics or something. And I would say that it was highly informed by them. I mean, all the records, starting with Focus, really. So it was really kind of the beginning of like, where you realize there's so much other potentials and realities and possibilities to create music. You break all the rules. You start to, do you know what I mean? You stop out of all those boxes and riffs you go into new spaces. So that was like the real blossom moment where the lotus flower came. You know what I mean? Like mud fully. And all the demos to me before then were just like, it just percolating and just right. And I'm so horrified of the mud. I'm like, fuck the mud. But you know, the mud's that metaphor. I mean, Buddhists do it all the time. It's like look what mushrooms grow in, right?
I was gonna say the soil was the vessel for that seed to grow. You know,
oh, it's fertile ground, man. That's the fertile ground, man. Yeah.
so okay, so now after that year, how you guys scrounge up all the money, replace the gear that you guys lost in the rehearsal studio, and start jamming again, and
Yeah.
bring these
Well,
ideas into the jam setting.
yeah, well, it's funny. Like, I remember because the hurricane was saying, oh, it's going to this part and not this part. They would always try and predict them. They never fucking knew where these things were going. They're fucking wild hurricanes. At this point, I wonder if it was weather modification because I don't know what's real anymore with any of that stuff. But I will say that I had the intuition to take my shit and bring it back to my mom. So I had my gear. And just because we didn't know it was going to be big, I had my guitar, I had I think my main amp and stuff. And everyone actually took their shit home, if I remember correctly, because we didn't know how long we were going to be out for the count.
Yeah.
And Jason, I remember, they all ended up because he was out in the boonies. The family ended up in the fucking bathroom holding the ceiling. Their whole house, the ceiling was ripped off, and including his like grandma and shit, like in the fucking bathroom holding the ceiling up. He lost everything. I mean, it was just drenched. Like where I was with my mom, fine. Everything was fine. Like, I saw trees flying by. Sean was with me. He came over. It was like we were watching a movie that night, you know? Fucking like, it was like weird psychedelic dream. Trees flying by and fucking the whole neighborhood was just really just destroyed. And then looting started happening. So all the businesses around us, like people were breaking in. It got a little wild, you know, in the city.
Fuck.
Yeah, it was, and I'll tell you, man, the way that hit was so hard. And what's so interesting, and this is another story that I'm remembering, is right after the hurricane hit, we had just gotten home from the Death Human stuff, you know? We had toured and everything imploded at the end of Death Human's tour. Chuck was basically, a war started. And the war started with Chuck's girlfriend and our ex-bass player, who at the time was playing with, he was our bass player at the time, but he was also touring with Pestilence. And Pestilence were on the tour with Chuck, with Death in Us. And there was a friction. It involved basically girlfriends. and the girlfriend started a lot of trouble. Chuck's girlfriend telling Chuck something that was very disruptive to him, involving that she was involved with our bass player, Tony, who was playing with Pestilence. And he didn't know the story. And it was fucking gnarly. Chuck blew up. He basically went to war with Pestilence in the middle of the tour.
Ah, damn, dude.
And I'm caught in the middle of it. Sean and I, because Tony was our brother at the time, right? We're like, oh, fuck, you know? Like, no, he's cool, man. Like, and Chuck's like, fuck him. He fucking da-da-da, you know? And it was just this horrible environment. And the manager splits, takes off. Eric Reif leaves us stranded in the middle of Europe.
Oh, shit.
I mean, it was rough, man. I mean, we were kids. But I think we literally had to call our moms and like, can you get us home? Like, we're fucking fucked. And
damn, man.
Yeah, it was a rough situation. And but we got home, and then the hurricane hits, and then I'll never forget. I think that was the last time I really saw Chuck. Was that Chuck? Because the whole tour imploded, a promoter took all of our gear from England. Like the bus, somehow the gear got misdirected or was shipped somehow to the UK. We were on our way there from Germany.
Oh, man.
Suddenly our gear was hijacked. So that's what happened. I didn't even have my fucking gear. It was in Europe.
Whoa.
Jesus.
So our rehearsals place was destroyed, but Sean and I went up to Orlando because we finally got the gear shipped back to Chuck's, and we went and grabbed our gear and brought it back to Miami. And so we brought it back to our homes, right? And that was the beginning of like now writing Focus, you know? And it was like a year of not even really being able to jam because the city was just decimated. And
Jesus.
so I had my 4-track and fucking I was trying to figure out like, oh, maybe I won't do all growls. Maybe I'll fucking do like something else. And I got hip to the vocoder and I came across this thing. And so all these ideas thanks to that hurricane.
Wow. That's
the
really
vocoder thing. What turned you on to that? Like, where did you get exposed to that?
You know, I always say like the vocoders, the birth of it was rooted in insecurity, man. I was so scared of my own voice and insecure that I was trying to figure out a way to sing where I could hide. And I also wasn't a big fan of power metal and like the operatic singers. I prefer like death metal or something really weird, right? And like, so I was like thinking, how, you know, and I just came across, I think I'd maybe heard some vocodery things and some weird music, but it wasn't until I came across this Digitech pedal thing with this fucking, these pads, that I heard this voice and I started to play with melodies and I was like, this sounds fucking trippy against this. And you know what I mean? And suddenly it's like, oh, fucking Veil of Maya, you know, and it was like fucking that half step, you know, and it was just sounded really cool and it was a weird sound. And then it was like, oh, and then you can do the growl and it, you know, it just all kind of merged.
Wow, dude.
But it was really my insecurity. I was trying to like figure out a way to sing but hiding behind something. But it turned out what I was hiding behind sounded fucking cool because it sounded like a weird alien fucking android creature. And I was like, this is fucking rad.
Totally. Yeah. I totally hear that.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say the label, though, Roadrunner didn't know this. And they thought they were signing the death metal cynic. And we go into the studio not telling anybody. And Scott Burns was like, what the fuck is this voice you're doing all over these songs? He's like, we got to tell Monty. We got to tell the A&R guy. And I was like, oh, fuck, man. You're going to – and so we were like already doomed going into the studio, you know? Like you can't just change your sound, you know?
Right.
Like, but this is where we are now, you know what I mean? Fucking this is what we sound like. But so we had to go through that situation, which was kind of rough.
Was it? It was.
God, yeah, it was rough, man. Because they didn't understand what we were doing. I mean, the label was like, "What the fuck is this shit?" You know? And they're like, "How are we going to promote this? How are we going to sell this? This is not brutal death metal."
So, how did you convince them to?
You know, we didn't. I think they did some. They did a cool ad campaign. They put us, Pestilence, because I think Spheres had just come out with us at the same time, and a band called Believer had a concept album. They were tech thrashy, and they did an ad campaign called The Breed Beyond. And it was like an ad that was pretty fucking, and I thought that's kind of cool. Like we were like the new school, you know, trippy band. We
outside of the box guys. Yeah.
Yeah. Like our artwork was different. We weren't singing about gore and horror lyrics. And so they kind of found something. But of course, it didn't go over well. You know, I mean, fucking, we were hated, man. It was rough. We broke up. We felt so unloved, man. I mean,
so that's what the core of like bringing it to that. Like you're fighting against the current constantly, and that's what kind of.
Man, it was like against all odds. You know.
Yeah.
And this is what I always tell young musicians and artists. I say, just do it. The whole world will stand against you. If you believe in what you're doing, just fucking do it. It's worth it. It's worth it.
It's gotta be from here, dude.
Yeah, man. Because that's the fight worth fighting. Like fuck following the norm or going really trust in your own voice. Do your own thing. Lead, you know. See ya, Gus.
I agree, dude.
Yeah, you know what I mean. And it's the road. And, you know, bands like Cynic, you know, we forged a path that we got really cut up. You know, it was very thorny road. It was thorny. Those woods were dense and they were fucking cutting us up. And to the point where it cut us so deep that we just lost our passion. And we almost felt so defeated and unloved. We had a few highlights on that tour, Berkeley being one of them. But man, for the most part, it was just like heartbroken. We put everything, all this energy into this record that meant so much to us. It was like our life.
Wow.
And it just went, you know, and we're like, fuck it, we're gonna fucking change our sound and fuck metal and fuck this, and you know,
Yeah.
that's when we went and started doing Portal. We were just trying to find something new because we were lost. You know? Again, it was like, who are we? And no one likes us, you know.
I mean, it's like there's a lot of movies like that too. Where it's like with the bombs at the box office, like like Big Lebowski or something. Like Big Lebowski, like bombed the hardest like any movie could ever bomb, and then it became the like most
cult
bought
classic,
DVD.
dude.
Like cult classic, exactly. People came
And-
back to it.
and
Were like,
I was
you
gonna
know,
say, I think it's just the classic example of something that was just ahead of its time, dude. Because then it marinates in the zeitgeist for, you know, what was it? When was it? 93 when it came out.
Yeah, it was like really internet age saved our ass, man.
Yeah, so a decade later, roughly, I come across it, and with how things have, you know, progressed societally and throughout the world.
You guys saved our life. You know, like this is why we were just like, and it was Kelly in 2006 or 7 calling me, going, "Dude, people love you guys, man."
Yeah, Kelly was on our show, and he had so many nice things to say about Cynic, dude.
Oh, dude, no. And I remember that phone call, and I was like, "What? Fucking, just like, no way." He's like, "They fucking love you, man." And I was like, I was like, oh my, like it just, I didn't believe him because we weren't even in the scene. I get the occasional email or something, you know what I mean? Like in the early 2000s, but like,
so how long did Portal last before you moved on to something else? Was it just for that album?
Portal just made 2 demos basically that we did.
I mean, the 2 albums. I call it an album because of that.
It was really it was 2 recording sessions over like a 1-year period, but we did them one day and then one day, and that was it. And they were never really mixed. Those demos just became demos that got released.
Did you guys play shows with that lineup and those songs? No.
Never. We jammed, but we never played any gigs. And and basically, I think Portal was in a situation where Roadrunner had a 7-album deal with us. We said, we're no longer Cynic, we're Portal now. And they said, okay, so we'll put out Portal. And we're like, no, we don't want you to put out Portal. It's not your sound. And so we had like some friend manager people give the Portal stuff out, and like TVT wanted to sign us. That was like 9 Inch Nails' first label and shit.
Oh, wow.
And this guy who signed the Melvins to that label, and some, like, there was like Atlantic Records, like all these majors, and we were like, yeah, we're going to be part of this other scene, and we're done with the underground, and we're going to fucking make it big and be like in this other, you know what I mean, like weird dream pop music scene or something, like ethereal shoegaze. I don't, you know, it's like, it's really kind of post rock, right? It's kind of post rocky sound. And that basically turned into a bunch of legal situations. Roadrunner wouldn't let us out of our record deal. And we didn't get released out of the Roadrunner deal till many, many years later. So we actually got in such a legal mess, entangled with lawyers and Roadrunner and all this shit, that we really, really broke up. We just got so
overwhelmed with everything.
How do they bind Paul? How do they bind you to that? Like, because your name is no longer the same. You're now a different band, and how does Roadrunner like hold you legally?
They're signed by name. They're signing you as an artist,
as the human.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you change your name, could you get around it? That's like the only way.
Maybe, actually, I never thought about that. We were signed as like, because they were literally like, yeah, you want to put out solo records, you want to put out. This is why when you see bands like like that have a side projects, a lot of times it comes out through their label. It's because the label has the rights to anything they do.
Change your name to Mall Pasfidal, and then you're all good.
Well, I like that.
Yeah, Mall Hospital. Looks good.
Yeah, so we were so just disheartened by the business and so overwhelmed and so beaten up after everything that we just and we never said we're breaking up. We all just kind of dissolved and went our separate ways. Jason moved to Oregon. Fucking I came out to Cali, fucking lived with my brother for a while, started going to UCLA. And then I remember Scott Henderson and Josie Oreo were teaching at MI. And I was like, oh, I want to go see what's up over there. And I did an audition for them. And they said, you got a free ride to our school. So I went, I was like, oh, I guess I'm going to move to LA. It was like, bam. And I had other family there, my aunt and stuff. So, so it was just I guess we're all kind of moving apart, and we didn't really officially say we're broken up. There was no press release. It was just a quiet kind of dissolve.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't really even, I think we were so sad and so brokenhearted about it that we didn't even know how to put words to what was happening. We just, you know what I mean?
Right. No, I do. I mean, you have a vision, and this is what you love. This is the music you want to make as artists, and nobody's accepting it at the time. Yeah.
I mean, it brings tears to my eyes thinking about it because we meant so well. We really tried our best, man, and fucking we got eaten alive, And I'll tell you, even with the Roadrunner stuff, I mean, that era, they got us by the end, but it took a while, and there were so many people just saying, "Don't do this, change this. Those parts are weird. Those vocoder things," constantly trying to steer us in a direction. And it's these people that are business people.
Yeah, just money.
Business. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's you guys, we're just fucking artists. Just trust us and let us do our fucking thing and fucking stop.
It's too much of a gamble for a person like that.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, if you have to put yourself in this, snake
investor situation, investing,
yeah, that's all it is.
Thinking about it, return, man.
Exactly.
That's where the whole business goes south, man. It's that's where it all loses its
art and business just clash.
Yeah. They will never unless it's your business as the artist.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But it's funny. There was an era before this era, and Zappa's talked about it, where they said that there was a time where the guys in suits in the late '60s were signing. Or 70s, or some era where they were just taking risks on stuff and just signing whatever.
Yeah. Finding a new thing.
Yeah, just to find new things, and they didn't know what worked, but they were just fuck it, that. Let's just sign that weird shit because they just didn't understand it. And then the age of the hipster A&R guys, they acted like they knew what was. They know what sells, right? Yeah. I know what sells, and it's no, you fucking don't know what sells. No one fucking knows what. If you guys cracked the egg on knowing what sells, it would be a completely different business. I don't think anybody knows the formula at all because it's so complex, collective.
Yep. Very complex, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. And nowadays, a TikTok video will come out and inspire a whole new genre of music. It's it's insane now with all these different variables of social media. Yeah, it's it literally can forge the path of what's cool now is social media. Could be
it's run by the technology's taken over,
Yep.
Yeah, we're working
towards Terminator.
Towards what?
The first Terminator is his Facebook is the first. Well, it's but in a different way, but it's still the same thing. You know what I mean? It's kind of
Terminator was it's kind of sick and legendary now, isn't it?
Oh, totally.
Oh yeah.
So,
go for it. Go. No, sorry.
And I was like, is it? So it's cult, because it's an android, right? It's a cyborg.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So, all right. After that time where you guys officially split and everybody's off doing their own thing, are you and Sean still keeping in touch throughout that?
Yeah, so basically, I moved to Cali, and I basically said to Sean, you got to come out here. And we stayed in touch for 2 years, sharing music, demos. Constantly, I was sending him things, and we just kept, it was almost like the next version of the, the childhood thing, long distance. And then he moved out. And, we found that, and that was when he moved in with me in a house I lived in Hollywood after a few years. Because I had actually gone to MI for a few years and got so busy doing session work for TV stuff as a guitar player. I started working for a composer and, was the guitar player for Third Rock from the Sun in that 70s show and got, and I was like working for Ben Vaughn and, I got in more and more in that scene and it was really cool. And I was like, Sean, man, this is the town. There's so many opportunities. Everybody's a musician. I mean, there's a lot of musicians out here making a living. We can do this, and I was sending him all this like early Eon Spoke kind of ideas, these type of folky songs.
Yeah.
And so he was in a relationship. He actually was in a relationship with his first boyfriend that he ever had. And it was this guy named Ed. He was with him for, I think, 7 fucking years or something. He had met him even during Focus era. It was like, because Sean moved to LA by like 98. I was there in 96.
Real quick, when did he open up to you about his sexuality? I want to know, like, when you guys both realized that you were also on that same wavelength.
Well, I remember I started talking about it because I was accepting myself pretty young. But I remember I first started sharing it with others, with the band pretty early in a very subtle way. But I remember like really coming out with it by the Death Human era, 91. Like really where I was just like, what are you guys doing? They're like, oh, we're going to go fucking after the show. We're going to go, that dive bar across the street. I was like, oh, there's a gay bar down the street. I'm going to go check that out. And I remember Sean judging me,
at that time,
fucking going to a gay bar, and I knew, you know what I mean? I knew.
Yeah.
Right. How was mom during that? Was she accepting?
My mom was fucking rad.
She sounds like you were telling me earlier that she's always been on your team. So I
she was, the thing is that, and this is another part of, I think, Focus was informed by this, is that I wanted to come out, young, but in those early years in Miami, all these guys from the Northeast were moving down here from New York and shit and all those areas because of the weather. At the height of AIDS, they were coming here to die. So there was this whole wave of AIDS, gay men, HIV positive and full-blown AIDS population coming to my neighborhoods in Miami. And I remember thinking, holy shit, I wanted, all I wanted to do was come out and fucking hook up and have experiences. And I couldn't. I thought I was going to die.
Right.
So I basically didn't act on anything and practiced more. Fucking just like woodshedded and was like, I put all of that suppressed sexual energy into my instrument. And I think a lot of great art gets manifested by things like that.
Angst. Right. Yeah, definitely, dude.
Try not jerking off for like 6 months.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Jesus.
I'm telling you, dude. It's kind of like that where you're not able to fucking ventilate some shit. But thankfully I had an outlet. I had music. So I fucking just was like fucking riffs, fucking crazy shit. And it blossomed into this thing. And so part of it was that. And I would say the same was true with Sean. It pushed him as a drummer to work harder. And we're going to be fucking sick musicians if we can't be gay. Because the scene also was like so homophobic.
He was
brutal, dude.
But I mean, if you think
that's
about
like
it,
a common thing too, right?
But
with like
that's also
yeah.
Your upbringing too. Maybe enough people around you will make you think that that's wrong, so you gotta act out against it.
I mean, my world was tolerant, man. I open-minded, super liberal parents. My father had gay fundraisers when I was a kid for fucking organizations and shit. Like he was cool. And
Mhm.
my
Yeah.
my mom, you know, she had her gay friends. I had a gay uncle, a step uncle who became very close to the family, who died of AIDS. So it was around us. I think my mom, when I first told her, she fucking cried because she thought I was gonna die.
Oh, because yeah,
Back
yeah.
then, yeah.
Everybody
Jesus.
Yeah, and that's just so being born in '84. Like, I mean, I remember seeing it
I was
on
the peak.
TV and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, at 84, in 1984, I wouldn't have seen it because I was a
yeah.
baby. But like,
Yeah.
still into my early childhood, you would see constantly. My
Oh,
parents would have the news on, which is something that, as a 6-year-old child or something, you should never be watching. But I'm just seeing these people sick with AIDS and they're scaring you with AIDS. And I'm not saying that it wasn't a real thing, but I'm just saying like that's what the news was
oh,
feeding you all the time. And I'm just like,
dark. Yeah.
man, that's scary, dude.
Really scary. So I felt like, oh fuck, I can't go there, man. I can't
Yeah.
do this.
Yeah.
So I basically went celibate and
Mhm.
fucking became a weird monk person and just a shredder monk into fucking reading Hinduism and shit and fucking
That's
just
where you found the Eastern.
yeah, I was deep into the Eastern shit and fucking I just like it all went in that direction and it's just like and you know again you have to trust all these things unfold in the way that they're supposed to. It was weird little blessings, I guess, that led to an art form, you know?
So when did
Definitely.
Sean stop being the homophobic dude and say, hey, dude, I'm gay too?
I remember it's funny, like I'm trying to remember the conversation, but I remember it was at his house and it was funny because I remember somehow it just kind of came up in a casual way. And then he told me how he was afraid to tell his mom, even though he knew his mom was not homophobic. His mom was just the most cool, open minded person on the planet and just a school teacher and just rad. And he was like, I'm scared to tell my mom because of societal stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, I know. I was like, we were coming to realizing that how societal, how influenced we were by the world around us, and we'd have these real conversations about it. So I think it just kind of came into a very just organically. It just was like, oh, okay, of course you are, fucking come on, man. And
Yeah.
and because on some level we probably both knew it when we met the day we met. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
like spotted each other. Like, oh, fucking, you're one of those fucking freaks too.
Pepper guys.
Yeah, you can on some level. There's so many layers to that, right? But yeah,
Totally.
it took many.
So I was gonna say, so he's coming out to LA now, and the Eon Spoke stuff starts to percolate.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I'm gonna call out 2 songs: Calvary of Woe and Nothing. Those are my 2 favorite songs on the album.
Right.
Both of those songs I could listen. I had an experience with them today because every time we do one of these things, we get to cram all the stuff depending on the artist with listening to mostly their stuff. But this was another one where I was like, because as a listener, I like to just shelve the ones that I love so much to let them have my distance from them. So it's been a while since I've sat with Cynic, and I really had my experience this week, and it was probably my favorite. My favorite cram for any episode was this week, dude.
Did a deep dive.
I'd like to chime in real fast about it. So I just love all your work, man, and I'm such a huge fan. But I just had this super insane experience listening to Trace Daenerys, like the remastered one. Because I love the old one, but I just was like, oh, it's on my Apple Music. Okay, I'll check out this one, And I like in my car, and I was like, it like blew me away and like hit me in a way that was just like, it was like emotional, man. I was like,
Yeah.
God, dude. Like
Dude,
I was
I've
just
cried to Trace in Air like probably I don't know.
yeah,
I cried to
37
Trace and
times.
Air this week, guys.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll
There's a part in Adam's Murmur where I remember like we used to be on tour in bands and stuff like that, and I remember driving in the middle of like Ohio or something, and it's just cornfields and nothingness, you know. And there was a part, and I was like the whole band was awake, and I just started just crying, like and like you know I was like it just like hit me like I was going through a lot too back then, and that album, I mean, Focus too. You know, with like guitar playing and stuff like that, really like learning textures and stuff when I was a kid,
Yeah.
trying to get those down with Carrie, like we're trying to get the two different parts down together, and we were so into it. And then Trace and Air came out. I remember like I was like, okay, you know, I was kind of like a elitist by this time. I was about a little elitist, you know. I was like, I don't know, I like Evolutionary Sleeper, but the rest I'm not really into. And like and then like it turned into my favorite like top 3 albums of all time. Like
Wow.
it like transformed, like you know you get one song that's like a little seed it's playing in your brain, you're like whatever, I like that song, that's pretty cool, but what, you know, and then like next thing you know, like, oh, this song's really good too, the whole fucking album's amazing, you
That's
know.
cool.
It kind of just grows on you, you know. It's like
I was just gonna say, with the Eon Spoke stuff, did you guys gig with that at all?
Yeah, we did a little. Yeah, actually, we did a lot. We did a lot.
Okay, so
Yeah, in LA, and then we went to England and played some gigs in Germany, but not really proper touring. It was like just that was another band that, um, you know, probably my most prolific period of writing. As a matter of fact, like I've got, you know, I dug up recently all the demos from that period, and I found like 70 something songs.
wow,
No one's ever heard. And
so
yeah, so
no, I was just gonna say real quick, you just made me think of something, because you gave me a new piece of information tonight, which was the vocoder was kind of the thing that you were hiding behind,
yeah,
but it's obviously Eon Spoke shows that you stepped outside of that, and now you have the confidence to sing, because your vocals on that album are fucking great, dude.
so
thanks,
good.
man. No, I mean that was really the emergence of me not hiding anymore.
Yeah, you fully blossomed as the vocalist at that point.
Yeah, I felt like okay, you know what it is? It's like finding. I feel like for me, especially singing and stuff, it's like trying to access the truth. You're trying to get to like the most honest aspect of oneself, and then to kind of articulate that through your voice. And the voice is an instrument where some people put on voices, they put on characters.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
For me, I didn't have the technique or chops to put on characters. I could only sing in my own humble little way, you know? And so I found the truth in it. And that's when I was like, okay, this is cool. And I actually found great joy in singing. I found it to be therapeutic for me to sing and to open my throat chakra and to enunciate and say words. It was like, oh, this is so good for me, you know?
Right.
It was like healing and shit. So,
That's awesome.
I love that.
That's really cool.
Released,
Like with the with like you starting off with like the, you know, like the more metal vocals in the beginning. And then you're like, well, I want to kind of show myself a little bit. Then you put a vocoder on it because you're kind of like, well, I'm not really ready yet, you know. And then it's like you go to, you know, the Eon Spoke stuff. You're like, fuck it, this is me. This is how I do it. And it's really cool to see the evolution from like from that to, you know, to where you came to.
Yeah, and then Cynic, it was like it always felt, although Kindly Bent was probably the cleanest vocal record because it's the most raw of Cynic stuff. It also, I felt like the vocoder is such a sound. It's part of the sound, the vibrational imprint of Cynic
That's true.
It kind of needs to be in there, you know?
Yeah.
And that's why I went in a heavy way on the new album. Like, you know, I was doing proper keyboard or vocoder and shit. Like it was like, I'm going all in with this again because it just feels so right, you know?
Right.
But,
it's the proper vibration for Cynic.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now to get through we've gotten through the Eon Spoke stuff. So, and Kelly hits you up. Hey, you guys are a hot commodity now. We need more. Everybody else wants more. So
So that was it. That was the beginning of the transition. There was a bunch of synchronicities, and Kelly was one of them, probably one of the biggest ones. And I remember getting off the phone with them, and I think Sean may have been with me at that moment, and just turning to him and saying, "I think we're supposed to do Cynic again." And
was Eon Smoke still a thing you guys were already
was still
doing?
a thing, but we were frustrated. We had been through some record deals stuff and business things, and I think we just, it's very much my heart was in those songs in a very transparent and honest way, but I think that we, had reached I think we were up against a big, like a Titanic in terms of, because the problem with Eon was that it was so commercially viable that it's like an all or nothing. There's like no underground. Like the indie scene that we were part of in LA was like the sharks that came out for that were like the huge labels. Yeah. And I remember being in the office of Interscope fucking playing songs for them and all that shit. And it was just like, so it's like an all or nothing environment as to where the metal scene and the underground, which we came from, there's just more loyalty. It's more underground. It's more like, it's a different kind of scene. It's more independent. It's not, do you know what I mean?
And more collective, maybe.
Yeah. And Kelly really, when he said that, it just felt like, okay, I guess this feels like it was just a bunch of synchronicities, man. I think it was 7 things. One of the things was also a letter or an email from a fan from Russia who said, I had a dream. I was at a festival and I saw you guys play. You reunited.
Wow.
All this stuff. And so it was like, I think it started with that email, and then it was the Kelly thing and this other thing and this, and it was like, whoa. And I heeded the echo, man. I listened. And
it's very Jungian of you. Like that's actually what made Carl Jung follow the rabbit hole to explain synchronicity was not just 1 or 2 things that happened, but like 6 or 7 or 8 things that happened in a row.
You can't deny it. Yeah.
Oh, dude. I mean, I live that way now. Like I literally, like, you just drop something and say something to me, I might, like, after we get off this call, I'm going to be researching it and might be booking a flight somewhere because I literally will make.
I follow synchronicities a lot in life too.
Good, man. I mean, the universe is always handing you clues.
Exactly.
It's
exactly how I look at it, dude.
Yeah, dude. It's like it's constantly pointing you in the direction. Like there's a Buddhist slogan that says, "You don't try to figure things out," which is like, in other words, don't try to control reality. Actually, like trust that everything is sorted. Just show up, pay attention, listen. Pay it like almost like in awe and humility of what's going on, because this thing's fucking running whether you like it or not.
Exactly.
Yep. And if you just pay attention, you don't really have to make any decisions. It's all it's just being in a flow state,
Yeah,
exactly, dude.
And you're just like, bam, okay, now we go here and fucking. And a lot of people, you have to be in a creative space, I think, to live that way, because I think most people who are used to a very structured 9 to 5 kind of, very mechanical life, that can be very stressful to them because they don't know. Do you know what I mean? They don't know like what's going to happen next. They don't know. They're in control of their reality. But I love being in that free fall, man. I love not knowing what's next. Not knowing what's going to happen, not making any plans, just showing up and listening, and it's very it tests you.
It's definitely not always a hard, easy thing to do.
No,
and the universe always like it. Like for me, you said humility. That's like huge because like for me, the universe has always found a way, or whatever what do you want to call it. Has found a way to strike me down when I'm too cocky, or I'm not like I'm like, oh, I'm for sure about something. It's gonna it always like will churn out the opposite, and then it'll somehow when I'm not, and I'm kind of like open to it and like have like, oh, it's probably not gonna happen. I don't, I'll work for it, but it's probably, then it happens. and like if I get too like full of myself or something like that, like the universe goes like, no, calm the fuck down, like stop. like thinking like that. And one other side note I wanted to go off on is that I was raised in Santa Cruz on like a bunch of Buddhist retreats like
I
my whole
fucking
growing
love
up.
Santa Cruz. You kidding? I've done
Yeah.
a bunch of retreats at Vajrapani. I don't know if you know about
Oh yeah, I do for
that.
sure. Pema Osaling was the one I used to. That was like the one with Lama Tarchin. That was like he used to take care of me as a kid. That was like,
Oh
you know,
no shit!
yeah, he used to like literally was, he was my caretaker. He was like with his
Wow.
all the kids and the Tibetan kids and stuff. But for me, my mom was in the, doing the in prayer, doing the soak, doing all the things, and I
Cool.
was like out, like shooting squirt guns and having fun. But there
Yeah.
was like there's one thing I wanted to mention about you, just even watching you, I've watched like old interviews of you and stuff. You have that kind of same like there's this energy that when I would like hug him that was like as a kid that was like it was just I don't want to say it for the TikTok people, but it was different. Like it was just a different like it was something like a warm, comfortable. His smile just lit up like it was in, and he passed away on my birthday, by the way. Just want to let you know.
Oh,
I mean, well, this is years ago, but the
yeah.
fact that like in the Tibetan, like ritual, like it
Yeah.
was like I went to a funeral like right around my birthday and stuff, and it was just such a link and such a special person. Like it was, I've always, I'm not religious in any way. But my mom was deep into Buddhism and stuff, but I wouldn't really call that even religion, really. But
No, I mean
um,
Buddhism isn't considered like traditionally it isn't a
no, it's yeah,
yeah
just treat people nicely, and like there's people that have been Christian that have walked up to the retreat to come yell at him and stuff. He's just like, I love you. Like
yeah
it's fine that you believe that. Like I'm super happy that you believe that. Blah blah blah. And I was always like, damn, that's for all the like angry like sign picketing people, he was just like, I love you. I was like,
It's like a Ramdas would act that way too.
oh
You
yeah
know,
yeah, oh definitely, definitely.
Ramdas is somebody that I've skimmed the surface on. I wish I could go deeper on him, but I
dude
do have
oh
From Here Now. That's
yeah be
Be
here
Here
now
Now. Excuse me.
yeah
I have that book, and it's actually a work of art in itself too.
yeah
So
oh
flipping through every page of that, it has this energy. Every
oh
page that it's like kind of radiates with something that you get while you're reading through this beautiful work of art that's
mm,
giving you ancient wisdom. You're just like, yes, dude.
yeah Ram Dass is man and he's the YouTube is a treasure trove of lectures man and talks
Oh yeah.
that are just you can go down Ram Dass rabbit holes that are just fucking mind blowing, man.
Right.
He changed the world, man. I mean, that dude fucking.
Same with Alan Watts too. You have
Oh
a
no,
recent on the newest album. You have uh,
yeah,
a sample from one of his talks, and you could listen to that man talk forever. I
yeah,
could
Yep.
literally go for if I had nothing else to do, I could have him in my ear soothing me the whole
yeah,
time.
yeah. Alan's fucking. I know he was so like articulate. That old British accent is just fucking. You could like he just felt so, and he could just articulate the most complex shit and like break it down, in a way that was like understandable.
Do you listen to McKenna at all?
Oh, are
Like,
you kidding me? I mean, you're like, those are like the top three right there. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
exactly, dude.
like
And that's
Watts, McKenna, Das, like, yeah.
boom.
And so when I was in high school, get this, man, it was my senior year of high school in Miami. My mom took me to a reincarnation convention and Timothy Leary and Terrence McKenna spoke.
Wow.
And I remember being in this little conference room, hearing Terrence McKenna talk about fucking DMT and all this shit. And I was like, who is this fucking trippy wizard motherfucker who was just so cool? You know what I mean? And I remember when I left that room thinking, God, I could have transcribed that talk and it could be a book. Like
Yeah.
he spoke like so his mastery of language,
Oh, dude, that's one of my favorite parts is his vocabulary and how he just
Insane.
and you hear because I'm only listening in audio, and of course you can go online and watch him watch him talk, and I've done that, but still, just always constantly like this guy has no notes in front of him. This is him literally just
He's just riffing, bro.
riffing hard on the most complex, like out there ideas that nobody else is talking about, dude, and it'll make it make sense.
I know. No, he was like a poet and an artist. He was a true creative being of light. Like he fucking he was so beautiful.
I'll recommend something. I don't know if you've already listened to it, but Psychedelic Salon is a podcast.
Oh yeah.
So on there is at least one episode of him just riffing about James Joyce Finnegan's Wake.
Wow.
And it is one of the most, as a reader, owner of Finnegan's Wake, it's the hardest book to crack I've ever had, dude.
Wow.
I don't know if anybody else has listened to it.
No, James Joyce. I mean, so that's
so this was his last book that he put out, and he totally just flipped the English language on its head, made up his own language, but there actually is like Terrence McKenna breaks it down, and it's like, this is what he's saying right here. I couldn't.
You got to send me that.
I will definitely. I'll find out the episode and I'll send it to you, because it is great, because he goes into all his glossolalia shit and
fuck, man.
Yeah, it's good stuff, dude.
No, Terrence was like a true scholar.
His brother too, dude. His brother has a great book called Brotherhood of the Abyss, and it's his recollection of them at La Chorrera when they all just freaked out on mushrooms. Yeah, and they literally lived on. Yeah. Dennis is his brother, and Dennis actually, he got out there the farthest because they were literally living on like dinner plate sized mushrooms for like 2 weeks. That's all they were eating. Jesus. And at the time, they get so fucking out there on shrooms, dude, that Dennis had this idea that through sound, the sound that the mushroom was making, if you could hit that same frequency with your voice, that you would be able to bring the good shit into reality, which would be hash mixed with weed, intertwined with human DNA. And
I believe it.
And at the synchronistic moment of that night is at the same night where Terrence went out and saw a UFO. He comes back and he's got hash in his pocket that he didn't know where it came from.
Wow, there you go.
And he said out there he had not talked to anybody with hash, didn't bring it out there with him, but for some reason there was this little fucking chunk of hash in his pocket after all of that, dude. And they didn't. It wasn't like the Philosopher's Stone style hash that they were looking for, but it still was some good shit, you know.
Wow, that's a trip.
Yeah, dude. But it's also the recollection of them growing up as kids and all the Brotherhood of the. I think it's the Brotherhood of the Abyss, or.
Okay, I'll have to check it out. I've heard Terrence tell the stories. And I've seen Dennis talk a bit too on that stuff from those times. But I didn't know about the book. That's cool.
It is. It's a great read.
So I definitely have a question about.
We are in the weeds right now, guys.
I know.
We've been in the weeds for a while.
It's a question. I don't write out questions for anyone, by the way, and I wrote out a bunch for you, just because fucking it's Paul Masvidal. So during we had a Steve DiGiorgio episode, and he was talking about. Like I think he was talking about recording Human. I have no idea, but he was talking about recording an album. I forget, but he said that that him and Sean kept going, like they were super stoned and they were recording and they were like focus.
That was Human for sure.
Yeah. And they were like, they kept saying focus to each other, focus. And he's like, I rewatched it like today, and he's like, a year later, like Sean comes up to me, he's like, well, we got a new Cynic album. He's like, what's it called? It's called Focus. He's like, fucking course it is.
That was so funny. I forgot about that.
Like, was that like a mantra of you guys just being like, was that like a thing, or did it just come out of the blue?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The origins of the title, man. Like I remember there was a lot of things thrown around, including song titles, and I can't remember where Focus came from. I wonder if that's in an interview somewhere, historically, because it's like, was it Sean and Steve, and Sean just dropped that one day and it was like, yeah, that works, or I can't remember, but I do remember when the word kind of came into focus, and it was like, of course. Yeah, like that makes sense. It's simple and it's 2-syllable and the name's 2-syllable. It just seemed to kind of balance everything out, you know?
Mhm.
But maybe, you know what I mean? Maybe that's the origins. I can't really like even remember actually where that happened, but I just remember when it did, it was like, this is it, you know, this is definitely the title. And I remember there was another band with an album called Focus at the time, or something like that, like some 70s band or something that I can't remember, but there was some band from an earlier era that had an album called Focus. And I remember someone bringing that up or something. It was like, but yeah, that's a really good question. You stumped me there, man, in terms of the memory of where that came from. Maybe I have to do an ibogaine dosage to take me back to the memory. You know?
Yeah. Kind of get that
You know,
jog,
that's what they
jog
say
the memory.
ibogaine will do. It'll bring you back to these like very specific memories.
Yeah,
You know?
dude. I listened to Aubrey Marcus. I listened to him talk about
Yeah.
his ibogaine experience and how it was kind of like a advent calendar, and if you thought of anybody living or dead, you can just all of a sudden you'd float up to one of the windows, open the door, and there would be your deceased grandma that you can have a straight up conversation with.
Jesus.
And yeah, ibogaine is something that sounds really trippy. I just, while I was going to grab a beer real quick, I remembered it's Brotherhood of the Screaming Abyss. That's the book.
Yeah, that
Okay.
rings a bell.
I'm not trying to bring it back to McKenna again, but I'm just saying I remembered the missing
You
link.
know,
I knew there was a missing word in there. Okay, let's all right, we'll take it back out of the weeds for a second. Let's get back on the timeline real quick. So we're at the point where, again, I think I already tried to bring it back here, but we went into the weeds. So there is people asking for Cynic. You realize that Cynic is something that the people are wanting. You know, when did you guys make that decision? Like, okay, let's start putting back into the Cynic.
Turn to Sean moment, and I think he was like pretty in agreement from the get go, and then it was like, okay, how are we going to do this? Like, where's our band? You know, at this point, Jason had quit music and moved to Oregon, and it's like had a family and was completely out of the business. So we actually turned to friends in the scene in LA and found out about Mavis, David Sinescu, who was a good friend, old friend of my friend Dan West, who's like a jazz musician. And he said Mavis is a drummer, but he actually plays guitar pretty well and he'll understand the rhythms and be able to pull the Cynic shit off. And we're like, okay, cool. And because at that point it was just Focus we were thinking about. And then we contacted Chris, who had played with Portal,
Mm-hmm.
and started to learn, you know, the songs. And then I think I got so inspired that Evolutionary Sleeper kind of came out of those rehearsals and kind of playing the Focus material again. It was like that song just kind of came out, and we started to jam it. And then we started to play it at the shows. We were like dropping a new song, you know? And so it was like kind of, which was the incentive, because originally it was like, we're just going to go do this reunion shit and call it a day.
What was the first reunion gig? Was it?
I think it was it Hellfest? It might have been.
Is it online? Is there like a festival of you guys online or something?
Yeah.
Like I feel like
Yeah,
I saw it. It's you guys playing Evolutionary Sleeper.
Yeah, I think it might have been Hellfest, man.
Gilbert saying it's whacking. Was it Wacken?
Wacken?
Was it Wacken?
Wacken
No,
open air?
Later.
That was later.
Okay.
Yeah. Hellfest, I think it may have been Hellfest because I just remember like we started playing Veil of Maya and the crowd's just singing along.
Yeah.
You know, like thousands of people. And I'm like fucking crying. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, oh my God, people like us. You know?
Yeah, this is the moment you've been waiting for.
Yeah. I was like, oh, fuck, this is. And so we suddenly felt like people understood what we were doing.
So did you have that feeling of like you're getting ready to go on stage for the first time and you're like, is it going to happen again? Like, are they?
Oh, you're scared like hell, right? I mean, we were so scared. But then again, there was a lot of anticipation, and we had all this work leading up to it that kind of like people contacting us excited about the show. So we kind of had some buildup. I think I have to take this dog out for a minute.
Go for it, dude.
Go for it.
chat.
Go for it. Yeah, we got some stuff.
Like literally scratching the door.
Oh yeah.
No, go for it. We'll hold it down.
Can you give me a
hold it down.
minute? Yeah.
Yeah, we got it for
No
sure.
problem.
Figure out really quick.
Oh yeah. God damn.
Dude, where's
There's some
Joseph?
good.
Where's the professor at?
I don't know. This is the perfect time. I feel like my guess with Joseph is that he's like enthralled in the conversation and doesn't want to just jump in, because that's how I was with the that podcast you guys did the other night. I was like, fuck, this is like a sick. You guys are having fun. Everything's vibing. I don't want to just jump in. Just be like, hey,
dude, we would have you jump in wherever, it would have been fine.
Yeah.
But this would be an opportune time.
Did you jump in, Joel, on the last one?
Like literally, at like he said it was gonna end at 10 or like 10:15 or something, and I was like, or 8:15. I don't even know. But I was like, I'm gonna jump in like within 10 minutes before it ends, and I did like, and it stayed a little longer. But
yeah,
thank you guys for all showing up. We're trying to fucking.
Well, before Paul,
yeah, dude, I know we haven't even mentioned the chat yet. Dude,
the chat is killing.
You guys are killing, dude, and thanks for hanging with us.
Dude, we're all like so stoked.
I know.
I'm like, I'm so nervous. I got too drunk.
No, you're not.
Like,
are you still nervous right now? Relax, dude.
No, I got too drunk though. Now I'm like, I'm all worried about like my speech. Like, hello, how are you doing? I am in.
It's out of respect, man. Like, if you're not nervous for a Paul Masvidal episode, then what's going on? You don't know what's up, dude.
I'm saying that we usually don't
be like
interact with the chat as much, but we have literally.
We're trying to interact with the chat.
You guys keep popping it up. That's good. Yeah. I'm sorry if you guys had any questions.
It's hard to do like a podcast where we're deep in a conversation. Like I see the chat, I'm like, God damn it, I want to like talk about that. But then like you're in a conversation, so it's like we're trying to figure out the middle ground of it.
This is so good right now, though, guys. This is This is
Paul is
we just
so
need to
great.
let it happen. Yeah.
He's telling the great stories. He's a great guest. We're so stoked. Couldn't be more stoked. It's awesome.
Yeah, dude. No, this is a milestone episode for this show, and it wouldn't be where it is today without you guys, the community that's here with us right now, and the people who are going to be listening to this on YouTube or watching us on YouTube and all that stuff. Like, you guys are all part of the reason why we get to have a legend like this on right now. You know?
Yeah. Oh,
exactly,
yeah.
Dude. Fuck yeah. We're honored by people that watch the show, and dude, fuck. We're so stoked to be here, and we're like stoked to share it with you guys. It's almost like we're all like kind of involved, like we're all
we're right here with you guys.
We're all fans. We're all
you guys that are fanning out right now, we're doing the exact same thing, dude.
Yeah, dude. Like,
oh, dude.
So
multiple flip flops. That's what's up, Justin.
Yeah, dude.
Hell yeah, dude. Yes, that's what's up, guys. I got him on right now, dude.
Love you guys.
Fuck.
I know. When I made the little clip thing, I probably shouldn't have made him orange. But
by the way, I don't want to like endorse.
Glad.
I don't want to endorse like a company because I'll say like we don't affiliate with any companies, but those rainbow sandals. My God, I can't even say sandals. Sandals are like
rainbow brand sandals. That's
the most comfortable sandals I've ever had, dude. I gotta say, Anthony, thank you so much for the recommendation on.
You know, I'd come with quality, bro.
Rainbow sandals.
He's wore a lot of sandal.
Yeah.
You know?
What if we can strike up a deal with rainbow sandals and somehow get Anthony's face
it'd
like
be
on
expensive.
The bottom?
I said, dude, if we do that, we got to go right, and anybody who actually wants to buy them,
dude, they're so comfortable.
Oh, dude, remember when I said this?
Spend some money.
Remember when I said this? When you got to talk the talk, you got to flip the flop.
Oh yeah, that's a great.
We haven't said it since. It was like a drunk thing that I said, and I was like, oh yeah.
I thought we had the thing that on the goes on the bottom. What are those called? The things that you run at the bottom when I'm.
I think there is a sandal. I think I put a little tiny Cali Death thing on the bottom, but you can't tell because it's already in a moat, so you can't like. I put like a Cali Death thing on there. Like, it's so small. It's like I'm all, dude. It'll be on there. What's up, buddy?
Hey,
we're talking because one thing about this show that we haven't even mentioned really is flip flops.
Animals
and
animals too.
And animals, yeah, we like to see the pets too. But I'm a
nice.
flip flop guy. I'm a flip guy because I came from the beach town, you know. So I want to ask you, what's your flip flop to shoe ratio?
I mean, I have like so many, but right now I've been wearing these. You know, they're kind of like they're actually a type of Birkenstock.
Oh,
okay.
damn. Oh, they're all like, yeah, those are like
Crazy, nice.
good for your back and shit. Those are like
Yeah,
legit
they're
ones.
comfy and stuff, and this is what I've been wearing for a while. They're like rubber Birkenstock vibe, you know.
Nice,
Okay.
nice.
But I have a lot of old school flip flops, you know, and
Yeah,
I mean,
you got it, dude. So
yeah,
much easier.
so much easier. Yeah.
The
So
one thing with flip flops that I'm having trouble with because I'm trying to switch to flip flops. I got a Vans Croc where it's Crocs, but it's a Vans slip on. That's a Croc, and I'm like, all right,
Oh yeah.
yeah. They just started making them. I'm like, I'm
what a
buying them right
random
away.
collaboration right there, dude.
But I know. But I like walking around with flip flops. I'm like trying to be like I like to be like not seen or I don't know. I just like to be like on my own. And flip flops go like
Yeah.
everywhere I walk. It's like I'm making this noise with my feet. I'm like, it's annoying me now. I
So
don't wanna
this is the thing, dude.
Makes
That
me
means
feel
you're walking
important.
too hard. You're walking too hard, dude. You
I'm
gotta.
curling
dude,
my
nah,
toes.
no way.
I'm trying to put
lean
the.
back.
Oh, fuck that.
Feel-
It sounds
just-
awesome.
Just
You like the-
chill
look at the
out while
sounds,
you're
yeah.
walking,
I like
dude.
it. I'm all about it,
They
dude.
won't slap you. If you just
Nuts.
chill while you walk, they won't slap you.
Yeah.
It's like strutting. It's like,
But I'm flat-footed, so I found like over the years that especially if I'm doing a lot of walking, and I don't have a car right now, so I do a lot of walking unless I'm doing an Uber or bike riding, whatever. But is that I like arches, and those have a really just a
Yep.
good arch on them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so a lot of the flip flops I wear has been more Birkenstock school or stuff like that has a more emphasized arch. I even have a Croc type big flip flop that's like got this sick arch, you know, because if I do classic old school flip flop, which I have some of them, and I walk a lot, I'm limping like it just like
Right.
hurt my feet and shit because I have no arches, you know.
That's why
Yeah.
everybody needs to get the rainbows, dude. They got the arch, dude.
Oh, really?
the best
Yeah.
sandals I've ever owned, dude. They're
I
amazing.
haven't heard of those.
Rainbows. They're all
And
simple. They
Mine
just have
are
a simple
mine are
design.
made of hemp, and I've had them for 20 years, and it took maybe like
They're
the
amazing.
first year for them to really conform. But once they conform, they're
They're
long.
insane.
Dude,
Yeah.
like I just said, I've had them for 15, 20 years. Probably. I'm
Wow.
gone over it, and they don't fall apart. They're literally ready for everything, dude.
Damn. I'm looking
I
at
could
them
run
up.
in those, dude. Just curl the toes, dude. That's
Oh,
all you gotta do.
rainbow.
Yeah, dude.
Nice.
So, all right, back onto the festival circuit that you guys were doing. That's where we were at. So, Evolutionary Sleepers, the new song in the set. Hellfest.
It was like a seed planting, really, just like because we felt like we got to drop something beyond like just the history. You know, otherwise we're just this band like milking the past. And I think it was just the artist in me just being like, I've got to offer something new. And you know what I mean? It was just like, we got to drop something. And the reaction to that song was so positive.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like everyone was digging it. That it was just like it really lit us up. And
I listened to that. I don't know if it was a bootleg version of that
yeah, there's
song.
a demo version.
Yeah.
And we listened to that hundreds of times, dude,
Yeah.
waiting for Trace
We
and
were
Air to
all
come
about
out, dude.
Oh, dude. But I'll tell you, I came home from those tours